following discussion is not necessarily the views of all involved. The goal is to start open and honest discussion in the Christian worldview. Like all things, weigh what you hear with what you know and join us in our pursuit for the truth. Enjoy the podcast.
If you ever want to find a wife, go find Shaquille O'Neal and try and deck him.
Who do you get to play the Goliath?
Just rock. You would get hit in the head and then do that little, eyebrow thing.
If you've ever been looking for a sign in your life of what God wants you to do, it's a 900-pound kill this man.
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Second Rate Saints podcast. I'm one of your hosts here, Caleb. To my left is...
I am Joshua, and to my left is...
I'm Joel, and to my left...
It's me, Caleb again. We are missing Colton, and as per the norm, we are missing Stuart. I'm sorry, Stuart.
Big sad.
Pretty soon
We'll get him on eventually, maybe for our 100th episode.
That'd be awesome. I'm excited for when that happens. Joel, do we do things on the internet?
Well, just the other week, we passed 50 episodes, which I think we should be proud of ourselves for. I think this might actually be like 53 or whatever. We completely blew by it without really mentioning it. But yeah, we've proved ourselves that we're pretty consistently putting stuff online, right? We've got this episode that's coming out now that we're about to record, which I'm very excited for. But also, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. We have our website, secondratessaints.com, which, that one wasn't taken when we were looking for domains. So, yeah, no, I think you could easily say we are doing things online, Caleb. Yeah, thank you for that.
That's good.
Yeah. Who's read? Josh is read.
Joel, do you know how to read? Or sorry, Josh, do you know how to read?
Josh, what have you read?
What have I read? I read a book called The Slaves of Tenebrae. Stuart will know
What's
this book
called?
immediately. The Slaves of Tenebrae.
Okay.
It is a friend's mother wrote this book, and it's been published. And she was handing it out to a bunch of people and asking them to read it to get feedback for the sequel and is it good and should she continue writing and stuff like that. Anyways, it's got some inspiration from C.S. Lewis. It's got some inspiration from other teenage books where it's the heroine is in a horrible situation, gets pulled out, ends up becoming the hero, blah, 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 blah. It's very allegorical to the Bible, which is cool. Yeah,
What's its target demographic? Is that young teens?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's going to be a Christian audience if it's stuff like that. Yeah.
How many pages?
I can't read, 210.
I can't read. Tell me about this book you read.
Can you expand on when you said it's allegorical to the Bible? You don't need to be specifically for this book, but I want to know as a critique of a book, what does allegorical to the Bible mean?
Okay, so if you've read Narnia, there are characters that have direct correlations to characters in the Bible, or scenes within the book have direct correlations to the Bible. So, for example, Aslan and his whole spoilers for Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe right here. Aslan, the leader of this nation that's good, comes and helps this other people group, ends up giving himself in sacrifice for this one person on this stone table. The major villain kills him, and then he comes back and he resurrects after, and he's cooler, and he comes back and kills everybody. And then she's like, "But how? Well, how did you do that?" And he's like,
"Don't speak some deep magic to me, witch."
Yeah, this is just turned into reviewing Narnia.
Yeah, and so it's that's obviously the cross moment. Aslan is Jesus. He does the whole thing. The witch is Satan. It's there's this obvious parallel. And then the last book of Narnia has the final battle, and then the world is righted and all that stuff. Similar to Revelation and the end of all things and the recreation of the world. In this one, it's like the first half. So There will be a second book where the second coming of Jesus happens. In this one, Jesus is a guy named Liam from this other kingdom called Caleb.
So Liam Neeson, who plays Aslan,
No,
Jesus.
but yes.
And then Liam in this book is Jesus.
No, so in this one, he's the prince of a kingdom, and he's a soldier, and he rescues slaves from this underground kingdom called Tenebrae.
That's cool.
Underground kingdom, you said?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's like a kingdom underground.
Is it like Agartha?
No. Don't make this bad.
Is it like the kingdom of Agartha?
Anyway,
No, if you've ever read The Mistborn, it's kind of like that, where it's like it's very dark. This girl's a slave in this really corrupt kingdom run by bad nobles, and they're at war with the Surface, which is just another bad kingdom. And this faraway kingdom, Caleb, is trying to help everybody, and all the soldiers are basically angels.
so Josh,
Yes.
I have to ask you,
Yes.
even though it's your
Cover?
friends. Yep. What's the cover?
So this was a test cover, so don't hurt me, but it's like a 2 out of 5.
Okay.
It's the first test cover for the books.
And what was the title and who wrote it? Is it for sale?
The Slaves of Tenebrae by R.J. Jewell. I don't know if it's for sale yet.
Okay.
But yeah, it's good.
Hi everyone, Stuart here. I'm jumping in with a small correction. The Slaves of Tenebrae is a debut novel by R.J. Jewell and is currently for sale through Amazon.com. You can purchase this 5-star book as a hardcover or softcover for $20 or $15 respectively. The link for this book will be in the description for anyone interested. Back to the episode.
Wow.
So this is a check-in just to make sure that Josh has read something because you guys can't buy it.
Yeah, if you want to borrow it, you can read it.
Yeah, just stop by Josh's house. My goodness. I'm about to dox you, Josh. So if you were going to fight a big, tall man, what would you guys use?
A book.
Anyways, this is our David and Goliath
Honestly,
episode.
a gun.
What? A gun?
Hit him from range.
Yeah.
That's foreshadowing for later.
Yeah, David has a gun.
Dude, David with the gun would have been a menace.
Let's talk about that a little bit later. Let's introduce the topic. No, I actually have a point on that.
Yeah.
So.
Josh, can you do previously on Samuel?
Yes. So
Previously on Samuel.
on Samuel. Can we get hired to do the HBO Kings of the Bible series?
Dude, that'd be so awesome. That's a dream of mine.
Yeah. And you just do the 3 kings, like 3 seasons, a season on each king. Sorry, 4 seasons, 2 seasons on David, 1 season on Saul, 1 season on Solomon. And then that's it.
We call it the United Kingdom.
So what we covered last time, if you've been following along, was chapter 15 and 16 of 1 Samuel. Chapter 15 is the rejection of Saul as king. And chapter 16 is the anointing of David and David's first appearance into the book of Samuel and the history books.
Saul downhill from here.
So what we talked about last time was Saul gets commanded by God to go and attack the Amalekites for all the evil they did when Israel was moving into Canaan with Moses. The Amalekites were evil and attacked them like a pack of wolves, taking off the stragglers and the weak sections as they were following because they weren't, honorable enough to just fight them head on.
Yeah.
And so because they were, losers and all the horrible things they did, God was like, hey, you're removing them. He doesn't. He keeps the king alive and all their stuff, even though God said devote everything that breathes to destruction.
Specifically the good, like fatted stuff. He devotes the weak to destruction, which might be a nod back to earlier in the book when it's like Eli's 2 sons take the fat.
Oh, yeah.
Take God's glory.
Yeah. No. You're absolutely correct there. And so Samuel gets told by God. Samuel cries for the night because he's just so sad that the king they finally have is turning out bad. And so he goes over, he ridicules Saul for a while with a message from God
for a while.
And then he kills Agag, the king of the Amalekites.
Chop him up into little bits.
And Saul is removed as king, though the people are not told that he's removed from king. God has rejected him as king because he still has to be king until the next guy comes on board. And so that leads us to chapter 16, which is David and his anointing. And Samuel gets told to go to a guy named Jesse's house, he's a fairly rich man in Bethlehem. He's the descendant of Boaz from our section on Ruth. Or if you've read the Bible, that section, it tells you at the very end. So he goes there and he's told to anoint one of Jesse's sons. Samuel goes through from the oldest to the youngest, assured that God would pick each one as he passes on to him. And then God gives a little lesson to Samuel and says, hey, I don't look at the outward appearance, I look at the heart. And finally, the youngest son, David, is picked. And it ends with David becoming Saul's personal soother of the mind.
Music man.
When the bad spirit that God has sent to Saul in replacement of his spirit torments him. David is the one that soothes him.
The one who has God's spirit.
And so he leaves him, but then shortly comes back very quickly. And that leads us to one of the most well-known Bible stories in history and in culture, and potentially the most epic. It's up there for the ringing. And that's chapter 17, David v. Goliath.
Well, that's like one of the most popular Bible stories, maybe ever.
How much would you pay to watch a pay-per-view of the fight?
Here's the thing. It goes one round.
Oh, yeah. So did most of Mike Tyson's.
Yeah, it's a little bit like how much would you pay for like one guy getting shot?
$5.
Kind of old. That's
well, no, and then his head getting cut off by his own sword.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, maybe.
Oh man, this took a dark turn.
Still doesn't feel like something I want to watch though. But
it sounds more like something you see browsing through the internet. There's whoa, yeah, that's enough internet for the day.
But yeah, so the story of David v. Goliath is renowned. It hits all the markers. It's a great fight. It's an underdog story of small man fights professional soldier. It's got the same hallmarks of powerful man doesn't listen to faithful fool.
You won't believe what he does next.
Right. The guy who knows better, who's been king for forever, is a coward, but the guy who shows up for 2 seconds is like, all we got to do is believe in God. And then kills the enemy giant.
Yeah.
Right. It's got that same hallmark of this is it for Israel. If this goes poorly, Israel goes poorly. And this is also one of those moments where it's God has been working in the scene, in the background outside of everybody's view. And then his trump card shows up last minute and just and he's done this a couple times in the Bible and he does later on, but this is one of the most well-known. He's been preparing this guy for 5 generations since the book of Ruth. And then all of a sudden, boom, on the scene.
Yeah.
Takes command. Yeah. So I guess I should just start reading it.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Okay. Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle, and they were gathered at Soko, which belongs to Judah, and encamped between Soko and Azekah in Ephes Dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered and encamped in the valley of Elah, and drew up in line of battle against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. And there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span, or 9.5 feet. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he had armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. And he had a bronze armor on his legs, and a javelin of bronze slung around his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. His shield bearer went down before him. He stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not a servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." And the Philistines said, "I defy the ranks of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together." When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid.
Now let's stop there and cover some of those
because there was a lot.
There was, but that was a natural
break. Yeah. Interesting note. The Ephraim Daimonim.
Yep.
There's a couple ways to take that. People often do take it to mean like some sort of town, but it can be read as border of bloodshed or bloody border.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this may be like a reoccurring kind of...
This is a place where battles happen.
Yeah, this is a place where they people often fight.
Like eventually the...
Mars Hill.
Or the Valley of Jezreel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is another place where battles happen. Or Armageddon.
Magneto?
No,
was it where
Armageddon.
Okay.
Yeah. Armageddon is the Greek transliteration of Armageddon. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about his height then. I want to talk about it.
Yeah, because the Septuagint is different than the Masoretic text.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Septuagint is 6 feet, 6 inches.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which is what Josephus has.
Yes.
If my memory is right. Which would still be gigantic for those people at that time.
For those people at that time.
Yeah, because the tallest of the tall were 5'5", right?
Yeah, in a place where height is not common and they're malnourished.
Yeah.
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 Well, I think we mentioned this in our last episode, but there's something going on right back in Genesis 6 that talks about like the Nephilim, right, being giants. Okay, I'm going to bring it up because I think if there's ever a story it's relevant, it might be this one.
I'm okay with that. I'm just going to put this book down now.
So I know that Michael Heiser brings it up in his book, and I know you've read that as well, Josh. Have you?
Yes.
Yeah. This could be a way of signaling to the audience that not necessarily that he's large in stature, but possibly of demonic influence, which I think is pretty cool. But it also shows a continuous purging of Canaan, because since they have just recently arrived, like the Philistines haven't been around for a long time yet. Like they're not quite the natives of Canaan. They've
been around almost as long as Israel at this point.
Yeah, they've kind of grown up in parallel with this other nation. One
on the coast and one on the mountains next to the coast.
Yeah, and that has something to do with them coming from the Aegean. And you can tell that because of their armor, which is pretty cool. They seem to be left behind when Israel becomes a nation, because when Israel essentially starts learning how to use steel, they don't, and probably a technological advancement, which is actually a reason that I think Jordan Peterson gives for why this story is important at all, is because it's actually the conquest of civilization, where David is representing the more modern man and Goliath is the old man. And that it's through technology, i.e. the sling, that the battle is won. No, that's what he takes from it.
Yeah, that's okay.
I disagree with that. Anyways, it's a whole thing. I think the Nephilim are interesting and should be read into this story.
Yeah, so let's break down the Nephilim. Okay, so the Nephilim in Genesis 6 are half angel, half humans. From the description of the story, which is... That's the only passage where we get that description of them, that the sons of God had children with daughters of women. That is taken in extra biblical sources, like the Book of Enoch, to be actual 16-foot tall giants. In the biblical text, sons of God can also be in reference to a king.
Yeah, I don't think it's that 1-to-1. I think that's a pretty simple explanation of the Nephilim.
And that's the only description given of them.
Even when it says knew the daughters of man, there's some linguistic arguments that say the know is the same as that sexual union, right?
Yep.
But it actually is something more to do with influencing the child, right? That it's still a natural birth, but with the influence of the demonic. Which is something else. Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, well,
which deals with like the biologics of it. But
yeah, so if you're going full,
okay, and why does this tie back in? Is because when they are first scouting out the land of Canaan, they say these are descendants of the Nephilim.
Specifically, there's a new word referred to them called the Rephaim, which are a group of people that were amongst the Canaanites that were known specifically for being taller. And King Solomon later on is the last person. He destroys them.
Yeah.
And so he ends that that giant theme or that height related to the demonic theme, because he secures the border. Took 3 kings and 400 years of judges to finally fulfill the command.
So another interesting thing about the Philistines that is related to this, because they are not just likely, but very likely related to the sea people coming from the Aegean. They're proto-Greeks, right? And one of the things in Greek culture was that champion battle system, right? For anybody who's seen Troy or read Homer, Achilles versus Hector, this type of stuff. That's the cultural background.
Or Achilles in the beginning of the movie, it opens up with a champion battle, Achilles versus Brutus.
Yes,
which is an obvious. They're taking that story, which they're using that as an example they're using David and Goliath because the guy's a giant in the fight, which is a reference to David and Goliath, which is a reference to Greek culture, which is a cool.
Yes. So that's the background of why they would do this, what's going on in that challenge.
But they are still distinct from Greeks. There's not this development. They really only have 3 gods we know of. It's not like they...
No, I'm aware they're proto-Greeks.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well,
but
that's what I call them.
What degree are they Greeks then? I know it's because they come down from maybe Crete.
No, they share many cultural and even how can I say it? Architectural things. Their boats.
Yeah.
Their much of their armor. They share. There's cultural and like physical things that tie them to that group. And so they share stuff. Such as champion culture.
Totally. And so the Sea Peoples, which the Philistines are a part of, were a confederation of people groups that lived in the Mediterranean Sea that had aspects of them that, depending on the region that they were, that there were different groups of them in different parts of the Mediterranean, and different groups of them shared different levels of cultural relations with the culture that they were in and had been to. So the Philistines, this one group of Sea Peoples, shared a lot with Greeks and the Canaanites, whereas there were Sea Peoples that they found in the last 30 years that there's a mass grave of them in
Scandinavia, right?
Scandinavia, where they fought the Vikings. Yeah. And there's a group of as far south as halfway down the continent of Africa on the Atlantic coast.
Well, and it's in Carthage. They have the same gods as some of the Philistines.
Yes.
Puzzled people for a long, long time. And then it was like, oh, Carthage was likely also settled by...
Well, not only do they have some of the same gods as the Philistines, Hannibal, the one who had the long war with
Yep. Elephants over the Alps.
Yeah. With Rome,
Punicors.
he worshipped Moloch from the Canaanites. And so that god had been somehow carted to specifically that area of the Mediterranean without being worshipped on the coast along.
Yeah.
And so there was a transfer of technology, culture, and religion from this group called the Sea Peoples. They attacked Egypt. They had wars with other people groups.
They were considered to be the downfall of many Bronze Age civilizations.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of historians will propose like a diaspora from their point of origin. Because of they actually don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like there seems to be either a natural disaster or some kind of famine or something like that. But then it's also interesting that in Amos, it posits that God led them out of the land that they were in.
Specifically the Philistines.
Specifically the Philistines, not the Aegeans. Or
not the Sea People.
But I mean, as people who believe in sovereignty, we kind of go, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, likely he led them out to judge Israel in the same way he did like Cyrus the Great and things like that.
Yeah. So all of that being said, we're left with this place where the Philistines, who we've mentioned before, this is the same group that Israel fought where they brought out the Ark of the Covenant and it got lost. This is the same group of people that later on David is going to join with when he's on the run from Saul. The Philistines are going to have a long history with with Israel, this constant conflict because they share a massive border with each other.
Do you find it interesting that Goliath, right at the very end there. I think it's right at the very end. He mentions, no, it's not at the very end. He mentions Saul in verse 8, right?
Yeah.
He knows Saul by name, right? He's kind of calling him out, really.
Oh, yeah,
It's the whole thing is he's calling out their big warrior, their great warrior, right? Their king.
Yeah.
Who is a head taller than all the other ones.
Who's a head taller, noticed for his height, who is being called out for being evil, which is continuing with that taller, evil.
They wanted a king who looked like other kings.
Yes. Yeah. And he's gone against, to your point, he's been empowered by the Holy Spirit and gone out to fight and defeated other groups, including the Philistines. And so they know him.
They know him
because of his prowess.
Yeah.
And this guy won't step out of the camp because he's a coward now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this guy who's taller than him is calling him out.
So they said the shaft of a spear is like a weaver's beam. There's a debate over whether that should be translated as spear or sword, because that type of weapon, it would have had a broad blade on it. Isn't that cool? It would have been like a huge, like basically a great sword is what he has, but like the Bronze Age version of a great sword.
So because he is mentioned as having a sword later on.
Yeah. Well, that's the argument is that the same weapon?
Well, here's the thing. So how thick is a weaver's beam? Did you figure that out?
No. No, I couldn't figure out exactly what it was. I think it's Joyce Baldwin who talks about it.
Okay. Do you have anything?
No.
Because we should look that up, because the Greeks were known for having particularly long spears compared to the Middle East.
I don't think the Sea Peoples had phalanxes. As in all of my research, I have not come across that.
The phalanx is like a Greek,
proper Greek.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, but they might have carried over the spears, because the spears gave them the advantage of the longer reach, so they didn't have to get as close into battle.
Oh, sorry, it's a flat curved blade like a sickle. So the weaver's blade has more to do with like a weaver's rod has more to do with the blade than it does with the actual rod itself.
Okay,
so it's like. Basically, it seems like he has like a
scythe,
or something like that.
Well, it's probably similar to an Egyptian khopesh.
Yeah, probably something like
which
that.
it's like straight, and then there's like a half moon.
It looks
crescent,
like moon
and then there's another thing at the end. And that's good for slicing. That's the reason for the curve. Same as scimitars. The reason for the curve is because it cuts through easier. So,
like a weaver's beam also refers to how it would have been carried, like a sling, So it would have had a rope on it that he put around his back. So that's what Weaver's beam means.
Okay.
But the blade itself would have been like a scythe.
Yeah. So he's got a glaive.
Something like that. I don't know what he's
scary, guys.
Yeah.
But standard, like a standard warrior for them would have actually carried 2 spears, one in each hand, to defend while standing on the chariots, which is just such a weird thing to do.
Also, if he's 9.5 feet tall and you do the size up of the armor and the spear and his weapons, he's walking around fully armored at 900 pounds.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Like the style of armor at his height, at his size.
Assuming it's normal.
Yeah. Plus his like 9.5 feet, like you're 400 pounds walking around at that height. Like Andre the Giant's normal weight, he was 8 feet tall, was 350. Like, so he's walking around at like 400, 415 pounds without armor. And then the armor to cover that body mass is like another 400 pounds.
So the stat that I read was the standard weight would have been closer to 129 pounds.
Just for the armor?
Like an average person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
For the average person, but you're talking about a 9.5 foot tall man. When you scale up, because like you're not just like adding, 4 feet onto a person, you're also adding the thickness and the muscle required. Because like people with giantism, this is the thing. If he's 9.5 feet tall, he doesn't just have giantism. Because once you get past 8 feet tall, the distance between your elbow to your shoulder is too long for muscles to hold taut and they go loose. That's why a lot of people with giantism can't lift very heavy things. And so for him to be able to carry that kind of armor at 9.5 feet tall, he can't just have giantism.
He's got demon blood.
Huh.
Yeah.
Man, every time I look at David and Goliath, I feel like I find something else that's weird.
Yeah. So either Josephus is correct,
or the Septuagint.
And the Septuagint is correct, which is 2 out of 3. Or he was descendant of Nephilim,
or it's exaggerated.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Is that it's
but the Septuagint's translation would have been much later, and then the story takes place.
The commentary that I was reading by V. Phillips Long, he points out how the Septuagint actually omits several of the problematic and interesting points of the entire thing. It cuts it down quite significantly. Yeah. So it appears as though like the translators of the Septuagint were like, "This is wild. I don't really know what to do with this."
Yeah.
Right. And there'll be a couple interesting things here and there. Where the Septuagint took like this approach rather than this approach. I don't know if we'll list them, but yeah.
But yeah, this guy is wild. He's a menace. Like, imagine going up against this thing.
Again, I understand Saul.
Yeah. I understand all of Israel. Like, sure, one guy in camp is probably like, guys, if we all go out at the same time, you can't take us all.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. In Canaanite culture, the champion thing is not common.
No.
Like, apparently there's only a few instances of it even happening, which makes the idea that this is a copied story much more unlikely, actually.
There is another character that does this.
Yeah, and there is argument there whether David has kind of a propagandist kind of take where he's like, oh, well, at least that was one of my soldiers, so I'm able to take credit for what he did. And that's a little weird.
Yeah. The Talmud goes with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Talmud goes with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know. So this is wild. Okay, so I'm going to read the next section. Now David was the son of the Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah named Jesse, who had 8 sons. In the day of Saul, the man was already old and advanced in years. The 3 oldest sons of Jesse had followed Saul to the battle, and the names of the 3 sons who went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and next Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 eldest followed Saul, But David went back and forth from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. For 40 days, the Philistines came forward and took his stand morning and evening. That's another interesting connection to Noah. It rained 40 days a night, day and evening.
Do you think that has to do directly with Noah? Or do you think it has more to do with 40 being a number of wholeness? So it's basically like he's been doing this forever.
Yeah, and the wilderness wandering, Goliath's name means to go into exile. Both the wilderness wandering and the
40 years.
The flood are examples of judgment via a form of exile. The going out and then coming back.
Okay.
It's giving you the same vibe. Like I think it's using those kind of images in a singular story.
Okay.
Like in a one-to-one person story to describe to like the individual that it's, yes, this is a one-on-one battle, but this is a serious event that requires God's intervention, so to speak.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that, but I don't know if I would say it's directly referencing those stories.
No, it's using the imagery of an exile story.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can agree with that. And
it's
the reason for that
phraseology.
significance is that 40 is a number of completion.
Yes.
Right? That is the entirety of it.
Yes.
What do you think of the argument in verse 12 when it gets into this? It goes, now David was the son of an Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah. We already know this, right? And so what I read in at least a little bit in one commentary was the whole, hey, this account might be from a different source.
Yes.
Okay.
The fact that it's double downing on, we know he's an Ephrathite from Bethlehem. Why is it?
Well, yeah, because the chapter right before has already introduced David. Yeah. And Jesse and the sons.
So one of them might be that Ephrathite or whatever that is a position of military authority in Bethlehem. So it could be timed directly to being like basically deployed by the military strategist of Bethlehem. That's one thing I read from Joyce Baldwin. Don't know how much it holds up now. Her stuff is a bit older, but she is a great historian.
Yeah. What is she? 70s? 80s?
72 or something for her stuff on Samuel, but she also does stuff on Daniel and a bunch of other commentaries.
But this also, the reintroduction of David also goes to your point that you made in the last episode that the David in Saul's service section, where it describes him as a man of war and stuff like that, even though he hasn't been to war yet, it takes place after the David and Goliath event.
I think so. However, in verse 15, but David went back and forth from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem.
Yes, but that's because his brothers are with Saul.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like,
yeah,
this probably is not his first time running an errand for his dad to bring food.
Oh, okay. I'll read this next section because you've jumped to it.
I'm sorry. Is there more we wanted to say?
I think we need more.
Yeah, no, I'm just reading on my Ephrathite note to make sure.
Okay. And Jesse said to David, his son, take for your brothers an ephah of this parched grain and these 10 loaves and carry them quickly to the camp to your brothers and take these 10 cheeses to the commander of their 1,000. See if your brothers are well and bring some token from them. Yeah. So cheese is cool. Is that the first time cheese is mentioned in the Bible?
Probably not.
I don't think so. I feel like there's something in Genesis about cheeses. But maybe
a biblical theology of cheese, if you will.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things things to note is with the tokens stuff. That may not just be like a token from them, the brothers. It could be a token from the commanding officer to prove that Jesse is supplying the food for the soldiers that he's committing.
So it's like a food program to help this. Like,
well, but then he gets a token of it.
Yeah.
He gets a token to prove that.
Yeah.
Kind of like, the IRS giving you, hey, you paid your taxes. Here's a letter.
Yeah.
If anybody asks, show them the letter.
That's pretty cool.
If anybody asks whether or not you're helping to fund the war,
yeah,
here's that token that was given to you.
Okay. Now Saul and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. And David rose early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper and took the provisions and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the encampment as the host was going out to the battle line, shouting the war cry. And Israel and the Philistines drew up for battle, army against army. And David left the things in the charge of a keeper of the baggage and ran to the ranks and went and greeted his brothers. As he talked with them, behold, the champion of the Philistines of Gath, Goliath by name, came up out of the ranks of the Philistines and spoke the same words as before, and David heard him. All the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were much afraid. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And the king will enrich the man who kills him with great riches and will give him his daughter and make his father's house free in Israel. And David said to the men who stood by him, what shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him in the same way. So shall it be done to the man who kills him.
Free in Israel also means, speaking how I brought up the IRS, no taxes.
Yes.
That's what it means.
So what's interesting about that is specifically in killing Goliath, the benefit that he gets, like enriching the man, giving him his daughter and not paying taxes, is the reversal of the thing that God said Saul would do when he becomes king. Of the, hey, when you want a king, you're gonna have to pay taxes. He's gonna take your sons and blah, 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 blah. And the reward for killing Goliath is that thing that he's doing to the people is not applied to you.
Yeah. And it's also, I've heard it articulated that way, as in like, he is not over you in that kingly type oppressive fashion anymore. But I've heard it also as you are then almost brought into the royal family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And that would be the marrying of the daughter. Would seal that specifically, but also the enrichment and the not paying taxes.
It's almost if that's God's plan to legally make him king.
Well, you got to wonder
bring
from
him
David,
into Saul's family,
right? From David's angle a little bit too. He's like, hey, you're going to be king. Samuel anoints him, right?
Oh, I should marry the guy's daughter.
And then it's just like, oh, he's offering to marry his daughter. And I get,
maybe this is how
and my dad
it.
doesn't have to pay taxes.
Is God opening a door?
Yeah. If you've ever been looking for a sign in your life of what God wants you to do,
It's a 9 foot tall, 900-pound
kill this man.
If you ever want to find a wife, go find Shaquille O'Neal and try and deck him. And that'll get you a wife. Anyways,
and
David
you'll marry
was on
the
kind of his own.
president's daughter.
Yeah.
Man. never mind.
That could be a good premise for a movie.
What?
I think if you could put a modern spin
Joe
on the
Biden isn't going to go fight Shaquille O'Neal, so he says anybody who kills Shaquille O'Neal can marry Hunter Biden.
I don't know if Hunter Biden. I guess so. That's a terrible movie now.
What is happening
That
here?
has a terrible rating.
Yeah.
Anyways, we've devolved.
this out.
What do you mean cut this out? Don't bring Biden into it. We're in Canada, dude. I don't know what are you talking about.
Right.
Not my president.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's like, David's like, hey, what's happening? Why is nobody killing this guy? He's bad-mouthing God.
He goes, hey, Saul, I beat the tar out of a bear once.
That's coming. That's coming. But yeah, David's angry.
Yeah.
Why is nobody doing something? This guy's saying bad things about God. Kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We serve the living God. What's up with this?
Yeah. You guys are just standing around letting God and the nation getting.
I brought you cheeses.
Yeah, I brought you cheese, and you dishonor me by standing next to this man.
You guys find it interesting that the cheeses are for the commanding officer, not the sons?
Yeah.
And they get grain.
It's because Jesse's obviously trying to like warm his way into.
Yeah, don't put them in the front lines.
His kid is already king, though.
Maybe not yet.
Maybe
if
not
it's
yet.
in the wrong order.
And again, the chronology of 1 Samuel is wild to me.
Yeah, it's for the theological point. Okay, now Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, "Why have you come down? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your presumption of the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle." And David said, "What have I done now? What is it not but a word?" And he turned away from him towards another, and he spoke in the same way. And the people answered him again as before. I love that little...
His older brother's just like, stop trying to be a hero. You're a bad person. You left the sheep. And he's like, what are you
doing? Be quiet.
You're a bad person. Someone's making fun of God in front of you.
Yeah, I don't see you defending God.
And then he turns to ask the other person the same question.
It's every once in a Bible, every once in a while, the Bible just gets really real. Like, it's not like it. The Bible is like a produced theological point, and then every once in a while, there's just this super real, relatable response.
Brutally human.
There was that in chapter 15 with the whole like, hey, we did everything that you needed, and then Samuel, what's with the sheep then? Huh?
We killed everything. Hey, well then why do I still hear sheep? What are you doing?
Yeah, whoever wrote Samuel, maybe Samuel, is
probably not though.
No. Excluding the death of Samuel.
You're right.
And onwards.
Yeah, you're right. This dude's awesome. Like, he's getting all the best parts.
I think I know why he wrote it though.
Because David's
for
cool.
profit.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Okay, I'm sorry. Back to the book.
Oh, no. Okay, so when the words that David spoke were heard, they repeated them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "You're not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth." I actually like that line. Like, you're a child, and he's been fighting since he was a child.
Here's the thing. It also puts up this expectation. So will David.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to start sometime, right, Saul?
But David said to Saul,
"Get out there."
But David said to Saul, "Your servant used to keep sheep for his father, and when there came a lion or a bear or took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he rose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God." And David said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you."
So doom music starts playing.
Yeah.
He pulls a sling out of his back pocket.
The Septuagint does an interesting little translation. It gets a little more direct with the whole, hey, let no one lose heart. Your servant will go out and fight. It translates it, let my Lord not lose heart. Like a little more direct and like, hey, stop being a bitch. I got this.
Well, now we have to edit that out.
Edit that out, please. Thank you.
Just the end part. You said the word. That was the problem.
We've said it before.
No, we haven't. Not that one.
I'm right, though.
You're right. Stop being weak.
I really hope he catches that. Anyways.
But yeah, like, how awesome is that response? First of all, like, Saul's right. I'm not letting a 16-year-old boy go out and fight this giant on the behalf of all Israel. And if you die, we're all slaves?
Yeah. Yeah. And also,
no, I'm not doing that.
Also, even if one of them dies, as we'll see,
they
go out and chase them anyway. But it would be demoralizing.
Yeah. No, but this is what I mean. It's like Saul's, like, this is another case where Saul's doing something completely reasonable. It's just not what God wants at the moment.
Yeah.
And so, like, he's acting like a good king right here, right? Yes, he's a coward, but he's also wise enough to know that I shouldn't send a 16-year-old boy to go fight a man of war who's also potentially demon empowered.
Do you think the reason Saul is not going out there is because he no longer he knows he no longer is right with God?
I think so.
That he fears like losing? Because
he knows his days are numbered.
Mm.
And is it today?
It also might, like, it could be fear, because that has been the pattern of his life, and now he's being given over to that to do it. It could also be that at this moment, because he has the harmful spirit, he's not equipped to go to battle.
Yeah,
like he can't go.
It could be.
In the other case, it could be that like he knows that he's been rejected as king, and so he knows that he's not empowered by the Spirit, and he was only successful because of God anyways. And he recognized that too late.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but.
What verse did you get up to?
Up to 37. I can't continue. Because we are getting to the good part.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Then Saul clothed David with his armor. He put a helmet of bronze on his head and clothed him with the coat of mail. And David strapped his sword over his armor, and he tried in vain to go, for he had not tested them. Then David said to Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not tested them. So David put them off. Then he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in his shepherd's pouch. His sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine.
Okay,
that's so cool.
Okay, there's an interesting note, in 37 and 38.
Yeah,
Saul dresses David as a king. He puts on the kingly armor, right? The one who's anointed as king.
Yeah,
right. And then he also says, "Go, and the Lord be with you," which is what Saul is supposed to have as king.
Yeah.
The Lord is with him into battle.
Mm-hmm. So it's funny that Saul technically becomes the armor bearer to David.
Yeah, but the Lord's anointed king, right? Who the Spirit is with as king, is dressed as a king, and then the old one who no longer has the Spirit of God tells the new anointed, God's Spirit go with you.
Yeah.
It's just the irony is funny.
Yeah.
He figured it out too late. And he's kind of like Eli, right? He tells Samuel what to do. He says, the Lord has given you a message, give it to me, because if you don't, that's bad. Right? But this is also Eli who's stealing the glory from the Lord and letting his sons do this. And is going blind because of it. And so he knows what's right. It's just too late. He keeps messing up, and he's unwilling to pray the prayer that he should. And same with Saul now, where he knows better. He's been rejected. He knows that he's been given the harmful spirit. The spirit's been taken from him. And he's just like, go with the Lord, because he's the one that's going to make you successful. Because every time I try on my own, it doesn't work. So have you seen like how fast like a sling fires?
Oh, slings are insane.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the exact.
You don't need to bring up a YouTube video. It's okay.
No, it's
just the audio.
Slings are insane, and also they could get extremely accurate. There's a reason why they stayed in armies for quite some time.
Yeah,
for quite some time.
Well, and you can get deadly accurate with them.
Yeah,
which we shall see.
And ammo's pretty plentiful.
Yep.
Right, like it is a higher level of technology.
Yeah.
The reason why you would switch to arrows is for armor piercing stuff.
Yeah. Armor. What was the other example? Mass. You can pinpoint, you can arch.
Yeah.
An arrow, you can't do that with a sling. You can like if you just have 400 men with slings, the whole point of a sling is to hit the target directly.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't sling over a castle wall, over a fortification, and have the rock drop on someone. It has to, you want an arrow to arc up and come down. And so they have that advantage as well. And it's easier to fire an arrow from the back of a horse than it is.
Also way less training.
Yeah. Yep. Shall we get to the battle?
Get to the good part.
Okay. And the Philistine moved forward and came near to David with his shield bearer in front of him. And when the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, ruddy and handsome in appearance. And the Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, "Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and to the beasts of the field." Then David said to the Philistines, "You come to me with a sword and with spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of the hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, that all this assembly may know that the Lord saves not with the sword and spear, but with the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand." Man.
Awesome.
I would have crumbled so quickly. Like,
I'm going to serve your flesh to the birds.
Oh, okay. And then he's just like, "I'm not going to serve yours. I'm going to serve your whole armies." Like, Goliath must be laughing at this point.
Oh, yeah. So are we going to say anything about the sticks and the armor bearer?
Oh, the armor bearer. I don't know your point about that.
Oh, it's related. I don't believe it. However, I don't think it's good argumentative power. One of the things with giantism is poor eyesight, right? So commentators will make the point that what's he talking about sticks? He has a staff and a sling. That's all he's got. So he doesn't have multiple sticks. And there's a comment that maybe he never saw the sling, right? Maybe he can't see it because it is just like a leather strap thing, right?
Yeah.
Joel also is not happy with this.
But proof for it is giantism, which we've already covered. Probably isn't the case.
Yeah, because he has fine muscle
something
movement.
to do with something demonic, maybe. I think.
Okay.
Because
it's also the only answer to the question is why on a one-on-one champion fight is an armor bearer present? That shouldn't be. Unless the armor bearer is just there to
probably in case when he kills David, if the Israelites try to get uppity and
try to just rush him with like 20 dudes before the army can surround him.
Yeah,
maybe, but it seems weird that there'd be one dude.
Yeah.
I don't think it has a lot of explanatory power. It's a theory that goes around.
You need a referee.
Yeah.
Well, what are you trying to explain away there? Why is there a armor bearer?
To help him see. Help him out.
Interesting.
Because he can't see.
Well, the other thing
is, he can't make stuff out, but he can like see a dude, but he can't make out definitions.
And he's probably just smashing people. He's not.
So one of the reasons why he would fight in champion warfare is because he can just bonk.
Yeah,
but in a big massive battle, it would just be like he doesn't know who he's hitting.
The other thing
that's
is,
what people say. I don't think it has strong argumentative power.
So this is what's interesting is David says he specifically has a sword, a spear, and javelins. So he's
throw.
Yeah. Well, it's wild. But then the sticks, he could be referring to just the stick that is his staff. David's staff. And if he's got bad vision, he might be seeing multiple sticks.
Yeah.
Or he got drunk that morning. A lot of warriors get drunk before they go to battle.
I like that that's a legitimate thing that you're putting forward right now. I don't even think I can't even say you're wrong because it's like, that's true.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he could easily have said, "Oh, you come at me with swords."
Yeah.
It's like the plural doesn't really
the plural
indicate.
doesn't mean there's plural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, you're fighting me with sticks?
He might also be so taken aback that it's like, what is this? This is a boy.
This is a boy. I have multiple blades, thrown and close range. I'm cutting that staff up.
Yeah. And you come at me with sticks?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. This is it.
Also, their gods, I thought this was interesting, were Dagon, Asherah, and Baal, but specifically Baal Zebub, which is Beelzebub. Like, he's pretty emblematic of everything Israel hates at this point.
Do you want to know what's interesting about that? Beelzebub? Do you know what it means?
Doesn't it mean Lord of the Flies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you had to go to Canadian school, you have to read The Lord of the Flies, the book.
Yeah. So it's a big book. For modern readers, a story that has the exact same plot that just totally ripped off Lord of the Flies is Maze Runner. There's a movie on it. It has the exact same story. But Lord of the Flies, he talks to the beast in the wilderness. Satan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Anyways.
That is what it is.
Yeah. Even though they all think he's like schizophrenic or whatever, anyways, the battle. Well, no, the thing I was going to bring up is Lord of the Flies. The Lord previously, when he went through those cities, destroys them with pestilence.
Yeah, it destroys Dagon. Asherah becomes kind of integrated, which is not great.
Yeah. But the fact that the Lord uses rats and pestilence and tumors against
disease,
a god called Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
It
feels a little
on
Exodus.
Point. Yeah.
Gods and Kings.
No. The actual Bible story.
Oh.
Prince of Egypt.
Without Christian Bale in it.
Okay, so the battle. When the Philistines arose and came and drew near to meet David, when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to David, David ran quickly towards the battle line to meet the Philistine. David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell on his face to the ground. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone and struck the Philistine and killed him. There was no sword in the hand of David. Then David ran and stood over the Philistine and took his sword and drew it out of its sheath and killed him and cut off his head with it. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and Judah arose with a shout and pursued the Philistine as far as Gath and the gates of Ekron, so that the wounded of the Philistines fell on the way from Sharaim as far as Gath and Ekron. And the people of Israel came back from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their camp. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem. But he put his armor in his tent.
Okay. Couple points to note. Every time I have ever thought of this or read this, I'd always assumed forehead. Okay?
Yeah.
Because that's one thing. A couple commentators.
Nose.
No. Knee. Because the Hebrew word for knee is... Forehead is mesa.
Yeah.
And just above the knee, the bronze greave, that thing that goes over your shin and whatnot, is mish'ah.
Okay.
It's very, very similar. And their argument is, excuse me, there's two points to that argument. Well, one is the words are very similar. So I guess there's three. One is the words are extremely similar. So they may have been changed a bit. Two, he falls forward, right? If you're having 900 some odd pounds or just crazy amount of pounds, like you're loaded up to the nines, your knee goes out, you're generally going to fall forward, not backwards. Yeah. If you get hit in the forehead with something, vast majority of the time you're falling backwards, right? But he falls forward. And then the third point is there's a lot, and we'll get this right at the very end here too, but also what's referenced later on in the historical books and whatnot is David is attributed to killing Saul with the sword. Not Saul. Goliath with the sword.
Yep.
And yet, did he die from the sling? And those things are tied together like so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So the idea is that he hit him in just above the knee.
Yeah. It embedded into his knee, so it couldn't bend.
But which would have, at the speed of the sling, would have kicked his leg out from underneath him.
It like broke his knee in like multiple pieces.
Yeah. He would have fallen forward, maybe knocked himself out.
Yeah. Or
by hitting his head on a rock.
In so much armor.
That
he's like slow, struggling to get up. He's in
and it says David runs into battle.
Yeah.
And so it's possible that he's sprinting, throws it at his knee. Goliath falls forward. He runs up, grabs his ginormous sword in its sheath, and quickly cuts off his head.
Yeah.
Rather
or
than
its forehead. And then it's just boom, sneaks into his head. He falls.
He wobbles, does the giant thing in every movie, and then falls forward.
Yeah. And then he's just knocked out, maybe. And then.
Yeah, that's a bit more pick and painless, but I think that there's something to be said with the knee thing. I've never heard that.
Yeah.
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 So when you guys first started this conversation where you're like, I thought it was forehead. My thought was like, didn't he cut off his whole head and take it to the... And then you're like, no, it's his knee. I'm like, he took his knee? I was very confused for a little bit.
Yeah. And so, but it's also cool, David uses this 9, which would have been a great sword for David. Yeah. And what's cool is later when Saul is hunting after David goes to the temple and they have the tabernacle.
Yeah, the quote unquote not temple, but they call it a temple occasionally.
And they have Goliath's sword as a war trophy.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And David goes and retrieves it and joins the Philistines as their like marauding champion with Goliath's sword, the other champion, and is now being hunted by Saul, who's a coward and won't go there. And David replaces Goliath as the one that Saul is afraid of.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
We'll cover that. That's going to be a wild time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also could be proof that Goliath kind of wasn't a Philistine, because that position would have been held by somebody who wasn't.
Right. And that would make sense why his name is Exile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Meaning.
He's
Drax the Destroyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the exiled one.
Yeah.
He's the one from out there that doesn't have a home.
Yeah.
He fights for us.
So they see their champion fall. They freak out. The Israelite army rushes in
it's because this 16-year-old kid just walks up with nothing, doesn't look like a soldier, talks down the champion, right? Out threatens the champion, and then kills him in 2 seconds.
It also, he's just bolting in, whips a stone at him. He falls, knee or forehead, doesn't matter. Chops his head off, lifts it up, and all of Israel goes, yeah!
It's like, who is this kid? What?
Yeah. This was not the plan.
It's just split second.
Yeah. The battle, like, the fight is 2 verses.
Yeah. It's kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think him cutting off the head and parading it around.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's pretty climactic to me.
Yeah, but it's just so small. The actual fight?
Yeah.
Right? The actual fight's like, oh, okay. It's not like a swing, dodge, roll, this, and then he jumps behind here. No, boom.
Yeah.
This is another point to your thing about how Saul doesn't know David yet, that the story's in the wrong order. It's because of what Saul says at the very end.
Before we get there.
Yes.
David takes I keep saying Saul, Goliath's head to Jerusalem.
Yes.
He hasn't taken Jerusalem yet. Jerusalem is still a Jebusite city. Why would he take his head there? As far as I can tell, there's only 2 reasons. Either that's like it's kind of like there's some acronistic stuff going on out of order, or David's already selected Jerusalem to be his city, and he's bringing the head of his enemy to there to show them what's coming.
Is that yours?
No, that's also
Okay.
V. Phyllis.
Because the other thing is
Phillips Long.
They're in Judah.
Yeah.
So like they're near Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm. Like the army chases after the Philistines to Gath and Ekron.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He takes the head and goes to Jerusalem.
Yeah. But the battle right now is near Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. So it's close to it. So it could just be that Israel has like they're in communication with the Jebusites who only have that city.
Maybe. I don't know. I find it interesting. Also,
do you know what I mean by that? Like they're in communication with the Jebusites and the Jebusites are one of the other nations that is probably like, we don't have a problem with Israel at this point.
Yeah.
Let's just, let's ally with them. Let's let them.
It's possible.
Stick around so that they can.
I think it's weird that before he takes the city, there's a verse saying, hey, he takes the head of a defeated champion to that city.
Yeah.
Before he takes it.
Yeah.
Additionally, the whole thing where he brings the head of the Philistine brought to Jerusalem and he put his armor in his tent.
Yes.
What's kind of hinted is he probably just took Goliath's tent along with his armor and all his stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. This is mine now.
I mean, that is like we covered in the last episode. That's how you pay your troops. Mm-hmm. Right. And so
do you think? Go.
So like it would have been pretty common practice for him to like, if he had killed a champion, he gets his stuff.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Right? Because David uses Goliath's sword later. Mm-hmm. Do you think David just gets Goliath's armor resized?
I mean, he could probably make like 3 suits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you think David's just walking around with Goliath's armor and sword?
Well, the sword is kept as a trophy.
Yeah.
But armor, maybe. Javelin, maybe. He might use a javelin as a spear.
Yeah. Like, do you think like David completely takes this guy's life? Like, not just kills him, takes everything he owns.
Yeah.
Uses it. Like, do you know how terrifying that would be? To walk, like, everybody knows Goliath. Mm-hmm. He's just been a menace probably a generation. Mm-hmm. Everybody probably, have you heard about that 9 foot tall guy?
We don't hear of him earlier. And if he is in exile, it's possible that why can't I think of the name? The Philistines got a mercenary exile.
Yeah. But there is mention of him and people.
You got an alarm going off?
I think that's me. I don't know where my watch is though.
Well, but Goliath is mentioned and a relative of his later on. So he's not just mentioned in the story, and he's known enough that it makes he left a significant marker outside of this battle.
Right.
In the land.
Right.
To be mentioned multiple times for different reasons. That's cool. So David has this guy's stuff now. Like that would be such a specifically for Saul.
Big tent.
Yeah. But also for Saul to see this guy walk around with his stuff, the guy who you were terrified to go out and fight. And then this youth has got his stuff. Okay. Let's finish this section. As soon as Saul saw David go out against the Philistines, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, as your soul lives, O king, I do not know.
I don't know.
And the king said, inquire whose son the boy is. And as soon as David returned from the striking down of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, whose son are you, young man? And David answered, I am the son of your servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite.
It's not hey, I play music for you occasionally.
Nope.
So you feel better.
They've never met.
Yeah.
So the soothing probably comes later.
Yeah.
Yeah. That little section. But It's also interesting. It means that he brought the head to Saul and then he brought it to. So that means on his way. So that means that David had a conversation with Saul. He's just carrying the head of this guy,
it's just dripping on the ground
into his camp, just dripping on the ground. And then Saul's like, David's like, okay, I'm going to go now. And then I'm taking the head with me. Like Saul's, what's this kid doing? Like,
it is interesting. He's like, it's my trophy kind of a thing.
Now, here's the thing. This follows a story where Saul refused to kill the champion of a previous nation.
Champion king.
Yeah.
There you go.
But
which has also been related to the Rephaim or giants.
Because the head of the Amalekites was a Rephaim.
Yeah.
And that's in, where's that recorded?
That would be earlier
Judges.
Israel Judges. That Amalek was a descendant of the Nephilim.
Okay.
And so they have,
but it's never clear if it's propaganda or if it's like, right. If it's like these people were evil, like those people were, like, what do we mean by descendants?
yes. Yeah.
It's like weird mytho-history thing.
In the order of like kind of a
but
thing.
the relationship is there that this Philistine and the Amalekites are connected to this demon people from before, whether
however much that's articulated.
Yeah.
Okay. There's also like an offshoot in the Talmud that claims that Ruth's sister-in-law is the ancestor of Goliath.
Yeah, that's just made up.
It gets back and forth.
That's so cool.
It would be cool. And of course, if you're going to Game of Thrones, the first Samuel, you better be putting that in there.
Or have you heard the idea that it's Jesus and Herod are Isaac and Esau? Because Herod is an Edomian, which was an Edomite. Oh. And so Esau finally got the birthright, the throne, and God took it from him again.
That's funny. Also, how would Ruth's sister,
the one that returned to the land to remarry?
Yeah, but that's Moab.
Yes, but
that's on the other side of Israel.
Yeah, but he's in exile. Remember?
Yeah, that's what it's built off of.
Yeah.
Okay. Logistics of this sound weak.
Oh no! It's definitely not right. I just love the idea.
Again, it's not something that's built out of a historical case. It's something that's built out of the Talmud, right? Like out of tradition.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not historically accurate, but at the same time, if it
shows up, they're probably not.
If it shows up
historical
after Christ,
rematch,
I don't know.
You know, historical rematches are cool like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
The Herod one was interesting, but yeah. So David is awesome. This is the guy that's going to reign over Israel soon.
This is good. I'm excited about this.
Yeah. So far, way better than Saul.
Yeah.
Well, Saul started off the same way. Let us not forget.
But like less climactic.
Less climactic. However, he does fight Nahash.
Yeah.
King of the Amorites.
He didn't cut anybody's head off.
No. But he was empowered by the Holy Spirit.
How are we feeling about the knee versus forehead thing? Because I actually don't know, but I just think the knee thing's so cool.
I think the falling forward is interesting.
Yeah. The falling forward. Oh, wait. What other Philistine fell forward and got his head removed?
Dagon.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Anyway.
My gods, I curse you in the name of my gods, and then
you'll be defeated like your gods.
You'll be defeated like your gods.
I'm surprised it doesn't remove the hands. That would tie it together. Got a hanker.
That would tie it together. That would make the connection absolute.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Goliath. How
big guy.
That's incredible.
Big deal.
Like that whole fight, that is the most seriously, if the creators of Game of Thrones got with HBO again and they were like, hey, we're gonna do the Monarchs.
We've referenced that a lot of what it is one of the best visual stories we have. Maybe it's because it's been illustrated so many times and it's been it's in the mind of culture a little bit. Who are you casting as David and who are you casting as Goliath?
Ooh.
This is getting a little goofy, but still I think it's kind of fun.
Like in an HBO series. So he has. So you're
Why is HBO doing this?
Well, because HBO does the best for this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
But so do you have? Because you have to have a young David, old adult David, and then Grandpa David.
I don't think you have to have Grandpa David for this one, do you?
Well, because he gets to like 80.
Yeah, but you only need. I'm saying like just for this scene. Yeah.
Ooh, by the time they make it, none of the actors around today will be 16-year-old kids.
Fine. Who at what age would you want to play David?
Because like eventually, like,
he's gonna find a way to not answer this question.
No. Do you just get the guy who did Jon Snow to do David? Or
no.
He's short,
so
it doesn't really matter.
Well, you want to maximize the like.
What about a young Keanu Reeves?
No. He's too unemotional, and you need a very emotional actor to play David.
That's true.
With the Psalms. Because like if you're going like old King David, then like I mean like the people you just keep picturing are just like the heroes, like the warrior in every movie, like Aragorn, Jon Snow.
But he needs to be like a little bit more early on and a little weaker. Like he needs time to buff up.
Oscar Isaac.
The
guy who plays
he's Jewish.
That could be.
Yeah.
He's played Joseph in the Nativity Story. Great movie, by the way.
Interesting. He's also played the guy in Moon Knight.
Yeah, and
slave of an
dude,
Egyptian
he played
god.
a king.
That's a little on the nose.
He played a king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess so. I was going to say like Timothée Chalamet just because he's already been in Dune, so Messiah imagery's like kind of in his...
What if Timothée Chalamet plays young David?
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac plays old David. They look nothing alike.
Oh man. Oh, that's terrible.
Who do you get to play Saul? Who he's got he looks like a king, he's powerful. The guy who plays the Emperor in Foundation, who also plays Thranduil.
I don't know. I was thinking
he's tall.
Christian Bale.
He looks like.
I think Christian Bale's an excellent choice.
He could. However, the guy who plays the Emperor in Foundation, he often plays kings because he looks like one, and like pathetic.
Yeah, but
like morally,
Christian Bale, I think, could play. What are we doing?
He could, because
I'm completely missing his name, but Count Dooku should absolutely be Saul. I can't. What's his name?
That's Samuel. What are you talking about? He's angry enough and old enough.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah,
and he will cut somebody up in front of you. Anyways,
that's a wild way to end the podcast.
Oh, we're not ending the podcast. I still got to talk about who the Rock's going to play. I mean, Goliath.
Oh yeah, who do you get to play the Goliath?
Just Rock. Just the
Rock.
Yeah. Because he would do like he would get hit in the head and then do that little like eyebrow thing. Yeah. Yeah, that's my take.
Solomon would be a interesting cast.
Yeah, he's kind of pious. He's got a little bit more of like an air about him, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to get somebody that's a bit more sly because he doesn't go to battle. He gets other people to fight for him.
We'll just whatever. Just get Chris Pratt to play him.
No.
You got to get somebody that like when they're young is doing like everything right. Like they're like wise, but then later on in life, you start to see the like arrogance start to set in and he starts to worship the other gods.
So we need like a reverse Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Anyways, this has gotten I'm sorry. I spiraled this. We started talking about actors more than we did the thing.
Chris Evans for David.
No.
Well, you don't want Captain America playing Captain Israel?
Yeah, they'll have to do like a muscle reduction thing. I mean, you could. No.
Hey, Joel, do you just want to end it?
No, I'm still stuck on who's playing Goliath. Anyways, yes, I do want to end it. Thank you for listening this far into the episode. I hope that you've drawn something from this. I know it's like a little bit of a highlight reel of the best battles in the Bible, which... Yeah, actually, that sounds like a sick episode too. Just going, this is a highlight reel of the best battles of the Bible. Anyways, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please get a hold of us on secondratestates.com. We desperately need correction. No,
concerns. All I'm thinking was like, guys, I think your
selection and casting is abysmal.
Yeah.
Send us an email.
Oh my goodness!
I love him.
Who should Chris Pratt play in this? I don't know. If you have any casting choices for the story of David and Goliath, please email them to us at secondRateSaints@gmail.com. Yeah, look out for what we're doing. We're putting stuff up online. We've got some cool projects in our heads, but they're not yet on the internet. So keep an eye out, is what all I'm saying. Is that fair to say, Caleb?
I hope so.
Let's just end it.
Please.